Again, that number 1-855-821-5900 to get a hold of Lior or the rest of his team. You know, a term that gets thrown around the workplace and the working world all the time is independent contractor versus employee. So what is the difference, first of all?
John, an independent contractor is a very different beast than an employee. And so many times, every single day, John, multiple times a day, I speak with people that believe that they're independent contractors, or I speak with companies that believe that they employ independent contractors, and they're not really independent contractors. So let's start off with the idea that an independent contractor, John, is someone that's in business for himself or herself. Someone that tries to get customers, someone that manages their expenses in the hope of making a profit, someone that doesn't have regular hours, doesn't work exclusively for a company, someone that really is a business person. Now let's compare that to an employee. An employee has a company or an employer that they work for. They would have hours fixed by the company. They would be working, doing the company's work under the company's direction. They're not self-employed. They're not independent contractors. So the real question is, are you really self-employed or do you work for someone else? What you call yourself, what someone else calls you, is irrelevant and doesn't even factor into the analysis.
Does it really matter? Is one better than the other to either be an independent contractor or an employee?
Well, it's a huge deal, and it absolutely matters, because if you're an employee, that means you have the rights, the entitlements, the protections of an employee. So you have rights with respect to minimum wage and hours of work and overtime and vacation and severance, etc., etc., etc. Whereas an independent contractor doesn't have any of those rights. So you really want to understand what you are. And where I see this issue distinguishing between contractors and employees come up all the time is when the relationship comes to an end. When the person is being terminated, at that point the company may say or believe that they were an independent contractor, not pay any severance. But if the law considers you to be an employee, then guess what? You're an employee and you're owed severance. And it could be the difference between getting zero severance to getting $100,000 in severance. So it's a huge deal to understand what you really are, and what you call yourself, as I said, does not matter.
Can you still be an independent contractor if you don't fit, say, all the criteria, or if it's a handshake agreement between you and someone else? Does it still work?
So what we try to do, John, is there's a number of criteria, but what we try to do is look at the relationship as a whole. So it's not enough to say I meet one criteria on this end and another criteria on the other end. We look at the relationship as a whole and see, are you really self-employed? Are you a self-employed business person, or you work for someone else? You know, there's an example I like to use, and that is the plumber example. So if you call a plumber to your house to fix a leaky sink, then that plumber comes to your house, fixes the sink, and then moves on to their next job. And they have another job, and hopefully they have more jobs tomorrow. They don't work for you. They're an independent contractor. They came to you, they did a job, you paid them for that job, and they move on. Now, if someone else comes into your house and does work every day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, well, at that point, that person is an employee. So what you have to ask yourself is, are you the plumber, or like the plumber, or are you something other than that? If you're something other than that, then you're probably an employee in the eyes of the law, which means, again, you have the rights, the protections of any employee.
Someone could be listening to us or watching this saying, oh, wait. I sound like an employee, but they don't deduct taxes from me. Does that make me an independent contractor?
It does not matter, John. Just because the company doesn't deduct taxes doesn't mean you're an independent contractor. I had a lady contact me recently. She was working for a company as a bookkeeper for over 20 years, Monday to Friday, regular hours, and when she was let go, she was paid no severance. And I asked her, why wouldn't they pay you severance? That's ridiculous. She said, well, because I was an independent contractor. I was invoicing them. They were not withholding taxes. Well, John, of course she was not an independent contractor. She was an employee. She had a job. She went to work Monday to Friday. She worked from the company's offices. She was not an independent contractor. She was an employee. And because of that, not only was she owed severance, she was owed about 18 months pay, 18 months. So for her, John, that was about $65,000 that she was owed in severance. That's why it's so important to understand what you really are. It really could mean tens of thousands of dollars, if not more.
What if I'm incorporated or I go and become incorporated? It sounds very important, but does it make a difference?
It's actually very easy to become incorporated. You fill out some forms. you pay a fee, and voila, instead of John, you're now John Inc.
Yeah.
The fact that you fill out those forms and pay the fee doesn't change the reality of what you are. It doesn't change the fact that you're still an employee. Anyone can incorporate, and if it was as simple as just incorporating, everyone can be an independent contractor. Every person that works anywhere could become an independent contractor just by filling out some forms. Well, the law is smarter than that, John, and because of that, we really have to look at substance over form. If you look like an employee and act like an employee, you're an employee. It doesn't matter what the other things suggest. Substance over form, that's always the lesson.
Before we wrap here in a couple of minutes, Lior, I want to talk again because it's so important. And just to reiterate, severancepaycalculator.com. Great tool.
It's a great tool. It's the first of its kind. It's the, when I first came up with it, some lawyers were very upset with me because I was essentially giving it away for free.
Right.
I was telling people, giving people access to that information so they can get it any time, whereas some people wanted to charge for it. But I believe in access to information. I believe in people having knowledge. So that's why the Severance Calculator is so important. That's why the Severance Calculator is a tool that's been used tens of thousands of times over the past few years. And I encourage all our viewers to go to severancepaycalculator.com. Even if you haven't lost your job, you should be armed with that information in case that unfortunate day ever comes when you lose your job. At least then you would know. And be a good friend, be a good family member. If you know someone that lost their job, don't just let them accept severance offers that are inadequate, just like 90% of people do. Severancepaycalculator.com or call me, of course.
And it's free and it's absolutely easy to use.
No strings attached, John. Not trying to do anything other than give people that information. You go there, you answer 3 questions. It takes seconds. My daughter did it the other day. She found out how much severance I owe her. That's a scary amount. But it is completely easy to use, so there's no excuse not to do it, John.